So any kind of light bulb moments that we had? I'm seeing some nodding. Anyone want to volunteer to share? Marley?
I think I was a really flexible child, and I have literally become a more feisty adult.
You feel like that you're kind of
The other end of the spectrum.
I agree.
really?
Yeah. I was very shy and very, I think, fearful and flexible. Like I was that kid that just went with the flow, but then I was also, I think, I would tend to withdraw if there was new situations. But now I feel like I'm more outgoing and.
Feisty. Just let me say it.
You know, I'm just more.
Or is that feisty?
Yeah.
I call it the sign behind your head, but you know.
So Marley, what do you feel like there were influences that may have caused that, or do you feel like it just sort of?
Yeah, I shifted into a parental role when I was in high school. I took care of my siblings, and then it went from being really flexible to calling the shots, and then now I'm very much like, I want to be in control, just because I'm like, do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
But before I was just like, you know, and then I had to be in charge of other people, and I got pretty feisty.
Okay, all right. Well, that's really interesting, okay.
I think if somebody were to ask me, are you flexible, fearful, or feisty, I would say yes.
So for you, it's those variables.
It's variable. However, I relate to both of what both of you guys are saying.
Yeah.
I've changed as I've grown up, and it's interesting because I think it goes back to the nurture versus nature thing, and I think growing up, I was in one set of circumstances that really shaped that fearful and flexible thing, but as I've become an adult and I'm no longer in that circumstance, I'm flying! I'm free!
Dragging down the
Very
hallway.
feisty. Remember that?
The dragging down the hallway.
She was dancing in the
dragon.
hall.
The dragging down the hallway.
Oh, that's right.
See?
I definitely have social groups, and my partner are all very, very flexible. They're very easygoing, very calm people, very introverted group of close friends, and my partner is very introverted. So I think I've adapted more towards spending my time with people who are more calmer, and then I tend to be like the big personality.
Okay, very interesting, great.
I wrote a list of all of my children I work with. I
Okay.
noticed something interesting because I work with 2 rooms. One of them, like most of them, are in the afternoon. The kids in my morning class are all fearful, somewhat fearful and somewhat flexible. The kids in the other class are more feisty and more flexible.
Oh,
So I'm
interesting.
getting like a dip in. But all the kids that I attract to and love the most are all feisty. Even though I want
Right.
to tear out my hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like they said in the video, that the feisty, because they've got that dynamic, they can be more fun. Yes, they can have those intense moments, but they're kind of fearless and they're willing to take on, any adventure. And sometimes that can be really, within limits. It can be actually really fun to work with the feisty child. So did anyone else identify some children in their room and their temperaments? Yeah? Okay, good. And I think that's the key is understanding where we are in our temperament and where our students are in our classrooms. So then that way we can we don't want there to always be that conflict. We don't want to be 2 magnets pushing away from each other. We want to make that connection. We want to make that attachment. So, so understanding that, these are internal biological dynamics. The infant that loves everybody, well, the infant that is very cautious of any teacher that comes into the classroom. I mean, those are, they're brand new babies, so obviously it wasn't an environmental learning and it wasn't, teacher learning. Those were dynamics that that child was born with. And so I think further understanding that will help us in creating those attachments with the children in our classroom. So, all right, thank you for sharing. So, so we talked about those nine traits, and we've got our 3 temperament types. So now they've put it in a nice chart for us. So flexible, fearful, feisty, and what I thought was actually really interesting is so like low sensitivity. I'm a flexible person, but I actually feel like I do have some sensitivity to certain things. Like I don't like it too quiet, but I also don't like it too loud. I want it to be like kind of a nice calm. I used to be a music teacher, so I mean obviously noise does not scare me, does not bother me, but depending on the dynamic, especially in the classroom. Sensitivity, I think for me, right now, in my age now, is light sensitivity. And so, because that light, like we talked about, that light can really stimulate children. And I think, especially with our feisty friends, that is one of those dynamics where we definitely need to be very, very aware of those dynamics that can help set the tone in that classroom, So, any questions on the chart? Okay, so we're going to start our first activity, and this activity is called What is Your Temperament? And I know that we just kind of discussed that after the video, but we're going to do, this is an individual dynamic, and in the handouts you can share, we've got extra paper if you need it. You're going to use the scale that's in the 4.2 handout to determine your own temperament. Okay. And then I want you to think about a child that resonates with you and a child that you find more challenging. All right. Then we're going to debrief the activity by asking for you to share with me what you've learned, not only about yourselves but also the children that you've chosen, and the relationship that you have with them. And then we'll come back together in a group. I'll give you 5 minutes.
And 4.2.
Which one is it?
4.2 is it looks like, that's 4.2. I printed this right out of the thing.
Is it?
It's, yeah.
This.
Oh, okay.
And it says, and I'm sorry, any questions? Any questions about the activity? We're good? Okay.